We talk on the Parsha. This Parsha, Teitse, is a very rich Parsha. So many mitzvahs in this Parsha that we can relate to. Straight talking to us. And we will try to discuss a couple of things in the Parsha. The very beginning of the Parsha is Teitse milchama, which means when you go out to war on your enemies. That's the beginning of the Parsha. And the end of the Parsha is a mitzvah that you must not forget to ultimately wipe out Amalek, to destroy Amalek. It seems a little bit odd. The Torah is a Torah's chesed. The Torah of kindness and goodness and peace and shalom, and speaking so much about milchama. And all the way to the point where it says, there you must not forget, this is a mitzvah for all generations, you must not forget to eradicate, to wipe out Amalek. You would think that the Torah, or with each approach to life, would have instructed us to go out and try to convince them, try to sway them that they should change their mind, to do tshuva. They said, no, you have to wage war. The explanation for that is, by Amalek, the Gemara says that Amalek is Yodeas Riboinoi or Mechaven Nimrei. I think we mentioned it here before, which means he knows who his master is, and he intentionally wants to rebel, to break away. Mechaven Nimrei. So you may ask, if he knows, if he wants to rebel, he wants to be on his own, independent, separate. How does he know his master? How come he knows his master? And then the expression in the Gemara is, Yedeyas Riboinoi, he knows his master. Not he knows that there is a powerful master in the world. He knows it's his master. What's mean it's his master? He's rebelling against him. How is he his master? So the answer to this is that everything in the world, good and evil, everything comes from Hashem. Without Hashem allowing it to be and giving it its highest, there would be none. It cannot exist. Evil also lives from godliness, from Hashem. The difference is that in Kedusha, in holiness, you receive the highest from Elokus, from godliness, and you want to stay connected. You want to recognize it, and you want to accept, and you want to do the service and the purpose for which you were created. In evil, in Klippa, you want to receive the highest, and then you want to go off on your own. You want to break away. That's the whole difference. But the Chayas is all coming from Hashem. And this is the meaning of the words, Yodeya es Riboy Noi, he knows his master. Meaning he recognizes that his own Chayas also comes from Hashem. Not that there is a master of the world, a boss. But this is his boss. He gives him the Chayas. And yet, it is in his nature that he wants to break away. He wants to take and go away with it. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya gives on this a very simple motion, simple illustration. Like when two friends communicate, one friend gives the other one a gift or anything, they look each other in the face. And this gift creates a relationship, a bond between them. We always know that when you give a gift, let's say give a chosen or any time, a birthday party, you give a gift, the main thing of the gift is the fact that is the recognition, the connection between the two people. Not the value of the gift. It is the connection that it represents. This is between two friends. But if someone doesn't care to relate to you, then even if he gives and turns his face away. And even if he receives, he turns his face away. Because he's not interested in the relationship. He's interested in what he got. Take. This is the principal nature of Klippa.
This is when the Tanya is talking about like behind the back vitality?
Yeah. This is the principal nature of Klippa. The word Klippa means a shell. When you have a shell, where does the shell come from? How does the shell grow? It grows from the fruit. There's a fruit inside the shell. And the main chayas of the shell comes from the fruit. But if the shell should present itself and say, look how nice I look, and completely ignore the fruit, the real chayas that's in it, then even though it lives off the fruit, it destroys it. It separates himself from it. This is Klippa. Klippa is always presenting the appearance, the external, what it looks like. And forgets what it is that made it and what its purpose is. We have in our own lives, we have various skills. You know what skills means? Abilities. We can read, write, we can sing. We can do all kinds of things that are interesting and that get people involved and aroused. It says in Halach that a chazan who davens badiyom, the davens shliach tzibur, has to have a nice voice in order to arouse the people. He has to have a sweet voice. He has to be familiar with the words. He has to also be a learned person. He has to know what he is saying. And he has to have good intentions that he wants to daven to Hashem. It says in the Shulchan Aruch, if a chazan stands up to daven and he has in mind to show off his beautiful voice, he is insulting rather than praising Hashem. In other words, he's taking the klipa, he's taking the external, what appears like, and that becomes his main thing. And the chai is the real thing that it's about, the neshama of the whole davening, he completely ignores. There was a period in our recent history, in the Jewish history, there was a time, 100 years ago, even later than that, 50 years ago, there was a time when there were very big chazanim, like world-class chazanim, who were not Shemei Torah Mitzvah. And they davened in the biggest shul. This was a time that the world had not yet oriented itself. And somebody had a beautiful and exceptional voice, he can do anything. You know? He is beyond the law. That was a very, very serious mistake. This is like taking the klipa, the external, and to substitute it for the real thing. This is Amalek. Amalek has this tendency and this power that he knows where the chayes is coming from. That's what it's called riboinoi. And then he doesn't want to relate. Doesn't want to relate to it. Wants to take it and go off on his own. And this is what the Torah is telling us. That when you meet up, when you confront it with this type of evil, with Amalek, if you are going to start talking to him in a peaceful way, trying to convince him, what are you going to convince him? You're going to show him, you should know that your chayas comes from Hashem. He'll turn around and say, I know that. I don't care. There's nothing you can, no way that you can bring him to tshuva by this, in this way. Because he already knows it. Deep down, everybody knows it. And the Torah is telling us, but nevertheless, we have the duty to to purify the whole world. Kedusha and Klipa. How do we do that? We do that by milchama. The milchama is not for the purpose of destruction. The milchama is for the purpose of forcing the klipa to see the truth and to accept the truth. War. This principle of war, to us, is important to understand, and how this is reflected in us, in each one of us individually. Because the Alter Rebbe explains that every person is in a constant state of war. There's Kedusha and Klipa. There is Nefesh Olekis and Nefesh Abahamis in every person. The ultimate goal, what goal means, the ultimate purpose is to elevate the behemoth, elevate the nefesh habahamis. But the nefesh habahamis should willingly want to participate in the activities of nefesh olikis. But how do you get there? By being nice to the nefesh habahamis and trying to appease it and to explain your ideas.
What do you mean by appease?
Appease means
Kind of give it what it wants a little bit?
yes, appease, give it a little bit what it wants, being nice to it. That does not work. What happens is, on the contrary, it pulls you into its trap. The truth is that the nefesh habahamis itself, the behemoth in a person, wants to be lifted up. Wants to be lifted up. And in a certain sense, it rebels and it gives you trouble, because it wants to remind you that you have to do something, you have to lift me up. But the only way to lift him up is to stand up to him and to force him to join in. That is the way that the nefesh habahamis would be lifted up. It's not the purpose of this war, of this milchama, is not to fight and destroy, but the purpose is to overcome and to elevate. The entire situation that Hashem created, that there is kedusha and klipa, and klipa opposes kedusha. Klipa opposes kedusha, but it wants to be defeated. It wants to be elevated. And if it should be elevated, not by defeating it, but just by making believe, then it does not. Then it's not a real defeat. It's not really transformed. It's not affected. When is it affected? When it recognizes that it is being defeated. That it cannot exist on its own. That this is, it's not a real thing. It's not a truth. When it recognizes that it cannot be on its own, and there is nothing to it, then it can turn around and start learning from the nefesh halakis. But the first approach is not to give in. This not giving in is a very powerful and important aspect in a person's life. One of the things that illustrate this, let's say you are traveling someplace, you're going someplace on the road, and the road is in construction. You can't go further. Now you have two options. Either you find an alternative way to go around, or you turn around and go back. If you know where you want to go, and you have a real reason, you have the strength of your conviction, you have to get there, you will find other ways to get there. You'll fight, so to speak, against this obstruction, and you'll find your way out. If you do not have that conviction that you have to get there, then you'll just stop. You'll walk back. If it doesn't go smoothly, I'll go back. This is what the Nefesh Habahamis does for the Nefesh Olokis. The Nefesh Olokis wants godliness. But when does it reveal its full strength, that it really wants godliness? Not just because because it likes it, it's convenient, or because it's convinced, it believes in it. It is when it faces an obstacle and then breaks through it. And by breaking through this obstacle, it itself is elevated, and the Nefesh Habahamis itself has actually served its purpose, and also becomes elevated. This is the principle you learn in Torah so much about war, milchama, war. It is important to understand that war is not just for the purpose of Hashem, but the purpose of destruction. War is for the purpose of showing the real strength behind your activity, the real strength behind your conviction. Can you translate this last sentence of David? You didn't hear it? I said the summary is that the union of war is, and Torah speaks so much about war because war is the place where you reveal the real strength behind the good quality that you have. This brings out the strength behind it. And this is why every person has to have, within himself, has to have that stance. That I don't like it, I'm lazy, I like something else. He stands up like a man and says, no, but this is the right thing, this is the right thing to do. Regardless of how difficult it is, I'm going to do it. This goes in Tanya. You may have learned already. In Tanya, he says that sometimes it's an amazing thing. Sometimes I think I mentioned it more recently. Sometimes it is necessary for a person to, so to speak, be upset, scream in anger at his nefesh, at his Yetzer Hara. What is the meaning he screams on his nature? He's screaming at himself. What does it mean he's screaming at himself? It sounds odd. It's a joke. He's screaming at himself. It's very significant. What it means is this: that he's got this obstacle. Something is holding him back from going in the right direction. But he knows deep down that this is a false idea. He doesn't believe in it. He himself doesn't believe in it. And when he screams at it, the truth, what he really believes, comes out. Which is in this context of war. In war, the Torah says that the principle of war is, if an enemy comes at you, the principle of war is you shouldn't have to fight him. And if you stand up and you show him that you're not going to give in, he goes away. The idea is not to fight. The idea is to show him that you're not giving in. This is the same thing in a person's life. The strength with which he comes out reveals the real strength behind his own conviction, his own view of the truth. This is why the Torah speaks so much about war. One of the worst things that a person can fall into is what we call complacency. Complacency means I don't care one way or another. I just want to be a nice guy. I want to be a nice guy from Nefesh Elokis. I want to be a nice guy from Nefesh. I want to be here. I want to be there. This is the worst thing that a person can do. Then he loses all perspectives of his neshama. Sorry?
Which is the difference between know and recognize?
I've been here.
Which is the difference between know and recognize? You say for the Nefesh Abamim is recognize that the all comes from Hashem, and don't only know this. You say before this.
Knowing means to know from a distance. You can know many things, but they don't have anything to do with you. The Nefesh Abam is the Amalek. He knows from his personal experience the truth. He knows that everything comes from Hashem. But then he rejects it. We have this obvious incident where the Torah describes Bilam Horosh. Bilam, just learned not that long ago. Bilam was a prophet. Hashem spoke to him. And he himself said, Bilam said, that I cannot transgress on Hashem's word. I cannot go against Hashem. Right? So you would think, oh, wonderful. But this same Bilam tried every which way to get Hashem to agree for him to do that which Hashem doesn't want him to do. There you see what the critique of Klippa is. So you can't make peace with it. If you want to do the Klippa, the Nefesh Abamis a favor, you would stand up very strong, and then the Nefesh Abamis itself will be able to be picked up. Another inyan in this parsha that also repeats itself a couple of times. The Torah says if you build a new house, if you build a new house, then you have to make a marker, you have to make a fence around your rooftop, so that to safeguard people shouldn't fall off your roof. That's what it says. Now, this deen that you have to have a safety again on the roof has nothing to do with a new house. If you have a house that's an old house, you also have to have safety on the roof. And yet the Torah makes this point. When you build a new house, you should make a safety on the roof. In other words, there's some kind of an emphasis on new. this principle of new is found in Torah in many, many places. As a matter of fact, the Torah, the whole life of a person is organized by the Torah in such a way that there is always rejuvenation. Rejuvenation means coming afresh, waking up from a slumber. The first, the way that Hashem created the world, there is a day cycle. A day ends and a new day begins. It's not one straight period of time, continuum of time. There's a cycle, and then there's a beginning, an end, and then beginning again. Then the Torah also describes the week. There's also beginning of a week and an end of a week, another beginning, another end. Then there is a monthly cycle, beginning and end of a month. Then there's a yearly cycle, beginning and end of a year. Then there is a 7-year cycle. And then there is a 50-year cycle. What's the point of all that? Such an emphasis of ending and starting all over again. And also you've learned what it says in the Torah, Asher Anoichim Etzavcha Hayoim. So Rashi says, Hayoim, it means even though the Torah wasn't given us today, the Torah was given to us 3,500 years ago, and then the Torah Hayoim. Hayoim means the day, today, every time that you say it, it's today. Because every day you have to regard it as new. Chol Yom Yivinecha Kachadosh. What is behind the principle of new? We know that when a person wakes up in the morning, we speak about it quite often. We say Moedeh Ani. And what is Moedeh Ani saying? What is Moedeh Ani? Moedeh Ani does not say, I submit and I recognize that Hashem created the world. That's Hashem's world. He's the boss in the world. That's not what the Moedeh Ani says. Moedeh Ani says that I recognize that I was created new. I'm a new creation. Hashem put the neshama back to me again. Nechazarta bi nishmos. What this is telling us is the following. Even though we know that the truth is that Hashem creates the world all the time. Every second Hashem has created the world. Everybody learned this. I'm sure. There's no such thing that the world exists now because it existed a moment ago. It exists now because it exists now, being created now. It's a new thing. But okay, that's the truth. But in our orientation, the way we see it, we don't recognize it. We see a continuous existence. And we say it exists now, but it existed a day before, a year ago. That's why it's here. It's the same world. When do we recognize the actual relationship between Hashem and the world? When it is rejuvenated. When it comes from nothing. When it comes from not being into being. Like when a person wakes up in the morning and he was now in a state of sleep. He was not conscious. His mind didn't work. He didn't know what's going around him. Then he wakes up. That's when he recognizes, oh, Hashem returned the neshama to me. That's when he recognizes his connection with Hashem. Where does the neshama come from? When the neshama came from his body, it came from Hashem. That's when he recognizes his relationship with Hashem. So this we see, it's our experience every day when we wake up. But this is only a trigger, this is only an alert that teaches us to understand that every time there is a cycle, every time there is a rejuvenation, we should remember that this is rejuvenated because it gets recreated from new. And when it gets recreated from new, this relates the world back, our world, back to Hashem, back to its source. Many times we have the following experience. A person gets involved in a problem. And at first he thinks, oh, he'll solve the problem 1, 2, 3. Then the problem becomes more complicated. And it doesn't get solved too easily. And he gets very involved and becomes intricate until he becomes confused in the problem. Until he loses track of what the problem was. What is this all about? So what is he then? He says, forget about all this. Let's go back to the beginning. What is the problem? Where am I coming from? And what is it going to, what am I trying to solve? And what am I trying to accomplish? This is the principle of rejuvenation. A person can continue in his life, and one thing leads to another, and becomes complicated, becomes all kinds of different relationships, all kinds of different friends and enemies, and all kinds of different confusions in his life. There are, just to give you an example, there are experiences in people that they have an argument. Two people have an argument, and they act like they are enemies. And you ask them, what's wrong between? What's the dispute between you? I don't know. Comes to a point where the situation perpetuates itself, and it doesn't need a source, doesn't need a reason. It perpetuates itself. So this is true in that instance, but it's also true in a person's life, in an individual. You get involved and you think this is how it's done, this is how it is, and you don't go back to find out where is it, why does it have to be like this? This is how it is. This is how it's done. This is why we need these moments of rejuvenation, of reflection, and starting from scratch and saying, okay, what is it all about? Coming back to the source, and why is it all about? Coming back to the source serves two purposes. One, it clears your path. And two, you're connected to the source, so you have a new, fresh strength to carry out your duty. Just like every morning, we feel fresh. And the strength that we have in the morning is really a miraculous thing. Completely fresh, all the problems and all the worries that were in the evening, all of a sudden they kind of dissipate. When a person sleeps, wakes up in the morning, the same problems are there, but they don't bother him anymore as strongly as the night before. Why? Because he got new and refreshed spirit. And now he can see that he can overcome all of these problems. This refreshing quality, this novelty, is a principle in Torah, a principle in Jewish life. This is why we have the Seder that in the morning, the first thing we do in the morning, every day, we daven. Even though we davened yesterday, Today we daven, it's a new davening. It's not the same as yesterday. We have to make a decision to daven today. We have to approach it. We have to prepare for it, and do it all from anew. This is for davening and for learning and for everything that a person does. That's every day. And then comes a weekly cycle. Shabbos interrupts the whole week. Shabbos is like a day completely outside of the world. And it says Shabbos elevates all the person's experience of the week, and then starts a new challenge, a new week. This is the weekly cycle, the monthly cycle, and the yearly cycle. We're coming now to the year. This is, and I said, it's imperative, it's a must that a person, that in this rejuvenation, that a person start every year, come Rosh Hashanah, he clears off the slate and starts all over again. With a new clarity, a new approach. There's an interesting story told about Rashi. Everybody learned Rashi. One of the great skills, special qualities in Rashi, not only the explanations that he gives, which are so clear, but the way he presents them. The way Rashi writes is unusual. It's very brief, straight to the point, and easy to understand, and clear. The same thing that Rashi says in 2 words, the way he inserts it into the pasuk, somebody may have to take 20 words. Rashi fits it right in. So someone once asked Rashi, how does he do it? To be so concise and so clear. And Rashi said to him that everything that I write in one day, I review it the next day. Not the same day. Because if you review it in the same day, you're still approaching it with the same way that you learned it before. You review it the next day, so you review it from fresh, like you've never seen it before. Then you see a completely different way of presenting it. For us here in the yeshiva, this is really of a primary importance. We live in the same walls. We have the same books, same friends, the same environment. People want to change, they want to run, they want to go. Sometimes we need to break also, but basically, in the routine is almost the same on the day in, day out. How do we do it? How do we do it that we don't become stagnated and we don't lose enthusiasm? It is because all the time, as we learn, we find something new that we did not imagine before. Forget about new before. We couldn't imagine. This is the principle of growth through his chachos, through rejuvenation. You learn something that is so different than anything that you've ever thought, that you said, oh, I couldn't even imagine that I ever would be able to come up with this kind of a thought. Because the reality is that the depth and superior and the purity that we have in Torah is something which is beyond limit. And just as a person walks up a staircase, you go up a staircase, you make a step. Even if you make a small step, you just made a small step. You take a look and you have a completely different panorama. You see, one step up, you can see a mile further. 2 steps up, you see 5 miles further. It's a completely different horizon. What before was at the end, and it didn't mean anything, all of a sudden becomes bright and shiny. This is the principle of rising up. And in our learning Torah, we are constantly recognizing, constantly making one small step up, one little breakthrough. By waging war against ourselves, we make one little breakthrough. All of a sudden, we see a completely different world. Not only different, but beyond imagination, something that we'd never imagined before. See, this explains that the human being has this special quality that he is called a mahalach. Mahalach means he's constantly on the move, constantly walking. Malachim, it says Malachim, angels are much higher than the human being. But angels do not have the quality of moving up. They stay put wherever they are. The human being has the ability to rise up. This rising up, this moving up, is not just the madrega that you rose up to. The experience of breaking away from where you are and going to the next step, that experience is an experience that does not have a parallel. That is an extremely great experience. Not just what you have now understood, but just the movement from one step to the other is a tremendously bright experience. What is this brightness of the experience? The brightness of the experience is the recognition that everything emanates, comes from Hashem. Like this, you have things, and things are limited. When you see that you can go from step to step and completely break away from before, you realize that it's not just the limited thing that you have, but actually it comes from some source that is not limited. And this recognition that it comes from a source that's not limited, even though your immediate understanding is limited, but knowing that it comes from a source that's not limited is a tremendously illuminating and inspiring thing. Knowing that this is a pursuit that has no end. And this is the experience that you have in rejuvenation, in this moving up. Moving up is kind of a novel, a new step. Chidush. You can start from scratch all over again, forget about what you did before, and come up with new insights. This is a principle in general in a person's life. This is what keeps a person enthusiastic about life all the time. In Jewish life, because there's always a breakthrough. If he, in fact, hasn't control of himself, he's breaking through, he wages war, so to speak, against his nefesh abamis, he is constantly breaking through obstacles and recognizing a new source of light. And it's not the same person. One day to the next, it's not the same person at all. So now that we're coming to a new year is, in our cycle, it's like the biggest. Actually, it's also the end of 7 years. This year is also the end of 7 years. The next year is the beginning of the new cycle. This is the end of the 7-year cycle. So we have a double beginning of a new year and beginning of a new week of years. Maybe it should help that we should recognize and the power, the privilege that we have in this rejuvenation. And we should be able to relate our lives, relate our intellect directly to the real source, not just continuum of what we have, but the real source of godliness itself, to see how everything, all our understanding is actually rooted in the fact that we know about Hashem. It says, this is not the time to discuss it again, but it says that in real truth, everything that a person understands is really based on the Emunah. If a person did not have Emunah, would not have deep down the sense that Hashem is the source and the basis of everything, there would be no understanding.
Just Hashem?
Just Hashem. Hashem means something completely above world.
I understand this, but like if I was in school and I was learning things about this world, and I didn't believe in Hashem, the faith that this was correct, it wouldn't work. Wouldn't you be understanding?
You believe in Hashem. You didn't know it. Everybody believes in Hashem. You don't know it. I'll give you an illustration. 1 and 1 equals to what? 1 plus 1. How much is it? 2. Why is it not 1 and 1? What makes it 2? How do you put it together? What puts it together? And there are two separate entities. They exist in their own world. What puts them together? Why is it so simple to you to see that that they can be put together?
That's how you learn.
You know why? Because you know that this is all one world. That it all comes from one source. This is why this is 1 and 1 and 2. Not 1 and 1, it's 2. And if you did not have that a basic recognition, you wouldn't understand 1 and 1. Why 1 1 is 1 and 1. It's not 2. A simple formula like that is all based on the Emunah. Anything in Seichel is based on the Emunah, on a deep insight of the truth. And God forbid people who intentionally, there is such a thing, Amalek, intentionally want to do away with that perception, they lose understanding of anything. Nothing makes sense to them. So we have to strengthen our Emunah, and we have to recognize how, just like in the morning when we wake up, we recognize Hashem returned the neshama to us, Hashem returns the world into being every day, and every week, and every month, and every year. It's a new world. Nowhere near. It's a new world, and we are capable of recognizing it. That's the big thing. If we go and as I said, if we wage war with our Yetzer Hara, we will see how things, new ideas, new horizons appear in front of our eyes that we never imagined to be.
I see the difference between the Teitse that you gave before.
Hmm?
Like, which which is difference between the example that you gave before. You give the example of the orange that has shell, the orange.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can take the shell and eat the orange. You take outside the clipper, but in the example of Malek, Malek cannot recognize this, the oil can wear shell, because we know that the Torah, the Malek will be destroyed. There's no way for make elevate Amalek what is it. So the free choice I have person why some clip is strong and not.
There are I'll give you an illustration. The Nazis, the Nazis, they were very evil. They lost all respect for human life, totally. They lost sense of what a human being is. They were so indoctrinated, imbued with their ideas. They completely lost sense of reality. There was no real world. And it was impossible to go to them and show them, look what you do, look, you're completely false. You're denying the truth. They don't see it. They're blind. They're blind. They only see one thing, and that's it. Now that they were destroyed, not only were they destroyed, but now the whole world was seeing Nazis coming up and developing, and nobody stopped them. Why? Because nobody understood how evil it is. Now that they were destroyed, now the whole world understands the root of that evil. You understand? And now it can no longer, God said, it can no longer happen. Because we have not only destroyed the Nazis, we have destroyed the basis for their ability to develop it. Because the whole world came to see that this is a total falsehood. The truth is that the same thing is in the communists. The communists originally came out, they are going to save the world. They're going to make everybody happy. That was the theory. When it comes to practice, they saw that it brings out the worst thing that can happen. The worst oppression was in the communism. What's communism? Communism is a very simple idea. You know that communism, in fact, communism, the idea of communism, you know what communism is. You don't know at all? You know what was happening in Russia? The regime. No, but the regime, the system of government that they have. Communism means that all the people living in a certain area live as one commune, one group. They don't have their individual ownership. Everything is owned by the commune. They all work for the benefit of the whole. And so that's what communism is. So they had this theory that this would be that this is a good thing for the world, and it turned out to be the worst. Why? Because people can't relate to commune, to other people. People have primarily to relate to Hashem, and then they can do good things. To relate just to other people in the world, that doesn't work. You have to relate to Hashem. They have to be free people, And then they can do charity and do all kinds of good things. That too went on for 78, 90 years. And it created a tremendous tragedy, tremendous pain, until it was destroyed. When it was destroyed, it became understood and recognized that it has no value. It cannot work. It's contrary to the truth, contrary to human nature. You understand? So we didn't defeat just the Amalek. We defeat the essence from where he comes, where he gets his strength from. You understand? So Hashem should help all of us that we should stay refreshed all the time. That way we benefit from this refreshing air with new koiches and new insights. Every day has to be a new day, every week, month, and now it comes to a new year. And this is the way how we can succeed in bringing out and revealing the hidden and the deeper qualities that we have in our soul. Okay. Hatzlacha.